Today we'll be doing making this little teddy. He is worked in double K, DK, double knit. It's quite a thickish double knit and 3.5 millimeter needles. The ribbon is in satin, double-faced satin, and it is 2 millimeter. And for that I used 12 inches of ribbon, and it's woven all the way around the back through the stitches. This video will be done in two sections. The first will be on how to knit him, and the second section will be on how to sew him up. So let's get started. So here we are at my desk, and this is part 2 of the video. It is how to sew up the angel teddy. I have the required tails that I left when I knitted him. There is the front, or the right side, which has all the stitch markers, and there is the back side, the wrong side. We have these two here, which we very lightly worked away, so we have to work those away. I have a selection of different needles. I have tapestry needles, which have a sharp point, and I have darning needles, which have blunt points. So I'm going to be using a tapestry needle, simply because I want to actually break into the fiber of the work when I'm working away the tails. On the wrong side, there's no stitch markers, and I will be going diagonally across, just catching the stitches ever so slightly, pulling it through, making it a bit loose, and then I go back, just catching the work. Make sure there's enough tail to remain on this side. Happy with that. Do it on the other side. Once the teddy is sewn up, the crotch will be, because these both come from they both start from there, they originate from there. The crotch will be nicely sewn up. So this is really just to work the tail away. You don't want the work to come unraveled. Don't want it to be tight either. Be nice and loose. There we go. I love my tapestry needles for sewing up. See, from the right side, completely invisible. If you want to, you can just snip those off. Now if you're stuffing teddy, you really don't have to worry about leaving ends on. But this little teddy is not going to be stuffed. When you fold them together, we will be using 3 tails, 2 long ones, and this one over here for the crotch, which means we have 1 more tail to work away. Once again, sharp tapestry needle. If you have some nice music on, which I don't have because I'm talking to you, maybe a cup of tea. I do all my teddies in one go, so I knit a whole bunch up and then I work them away. So we have that, unfortunately, we have that gaping stitch here from the cast off. So I'm just going to try and pull him down a little bit. Go up. I'm going straight simply because the leg doesn't give me much space to go diagonally. And then can unravel it a little bit. Pick up some stitches diagonally. Getting close to where the ears will be, so don't want to interfere with the working of the ears. If you want to, you can nip a little bit off. It's very long. In this case, there's hardly any left. So I'm happy with that. You could have removed the stitch markers first, but it's really important that you remember which is the back and which is the front, because if you start working away the yarns and you haven't been paying attention, you can actually find that you've been working away on the front side, and it becomes really annoying if you have to undo something. Take all the stitch markers out. As you can see, there's a little gapping part there. We'll work that away when we get there. That's a preference whether you want to work the crotch first. I leave the crotch until last. So that's that one there. Now you think, why have I got such a long tail? You'll see later on, it's really better to have too much than too little, because if you have too little, you have to try and find, you have to either attach a new yarn or use some from the crotch. I'm going to use a blunt needle, which is called a darning needle. I don't use one that's too big. This one's bigger, because if he's too big, it actually becomes a little bit magnetized, becomes a bit tricky to get into the actual stitch. Okay, making sure that I have a long tail, pin teddy together, and what I will be doing is I'll be going back and forth like that. I won't be whip stitching him because this is on the outside. It's different if you're actually going to be turning the work inside out. And then I will be working the bumps together. See this one over here, the bump is actually leaking into that bump. So you can see where he is. There he is. Two here, two here, two there, two there, two there, and the feet. I count from the underarm because it's a bit tricky to see the feet. So you want to make the underarm, you just pinch it, and then you go to the other side. First stitch, you first come back, pick up these two, go that side, pick up these two, come this way, pick up those two. Oh, make sure there's enough tail so it doesn't come out of your needle, because you have to rethread it. Poof. And I'm literally going into the knot as much as possible. There's a little teddy. That's the first side sewn up. Now there's a little underarm. So what I do here is I go into here. Let's see if I can really bring him in. I go into there and I just catch a stitch. Okay, I go to the front and I do the same. Do you see? Not this, just gaping, not that. I literally catch a stitch. pull it in, and that tucks up the underarm. But I'm not going to go back there. I'm just going to stay on this side, pinch the arm together, come and weave back and forth. I'm not pulling very tightly. There's no stuffing in this. It's literally just to hold Teddy together. Coming here to the side, and we have those bumps again from the rows. The bumps we've been counting. 1, 2, 3. Let me just move this light. I don't want it to come into the camera. There we go. I have 2 lights, so there's no shadows. 1 light comes from each side. Once again, see, I don't go to the other side to pick it, because what happens is you start to get ridges if you do. I mean, I don't call them ridges. Like, yeah, anyway, I think you understand if you sew things up. So as far as possible, I try not to go through and then work and around and around. As far as possible, I try and weave back and forth this way. Going to do that thing again where I'm going to catch the stitch here in the back. Come across and catch that one. It really is a tuck him in. Just tucked it in. But instead of going back to that side, I'll just come from this side. So now I'm pinching them again. 2, 4, 6, 8. There's no stuffing. We're going to have to keep the stuffing in. There's a little ridge on top. Now what I'm going to do is the work is going to come down. I'm going to come out. Don't want to pull that ear in, so I'm going to pinch him a little bit. Don't want him to come down. One, 2, 3, 4. It's about 4 ridges down. Now I'm going to leave that, and we will come back and finish the ear afterwards. What I'm going to do now is sew up the other side. Make sure it's the longer yarn, the longer tail. Pinch Teddy, count the bumps, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So messy down here. Do the best I can just to close that foot. As I said, I'm going to have to find a way to fix that in the initial design. And now I'll weave back and forth. stitch there. Come across, catch on this side. So when you're doing the underarms and the top of the arms, you're actually joining a cast on row or cast on seam, for want of a better word, and a cast off. So the stitches are not going to be identical. It's a bit of a guessing game. Now we come to the sides. See if we can match those little bumps up. 1, 2 on that side, 2 on this side. It can be a little bit tricky to see. Once you get the bumps lined up and you squash them together, and when you come to the corners, you can guess a little bit on the corners. And the actual main part won't be a guess. They'll be lining up. The corner, a little bit of a guess there. So I like to do this at my desk. I can see clearly. My arms are actually on the desk is actually supporting my arms, and then my hands are free to go back and forth. Catch it on this side. Not too much of a gape on that side, so I just have to have a little tiny stitch to nip it in. Now here you must make sure that your teddy doesn't come out wonky, because if you sew him up, he's going to come out like that. Where's the top ridge? This side will dictate where the top ridge is. Sometimes if you sew him up, you'll say, oh, I haven't got a top ridge, I've actually got, like, it goes like that. Say, okay, well, whatever's done on this side, you must respect on that side. So I haven't done the ears yet. You want teddy to be nice and flat. Say, okay, well, that's the way this side is. It's the strangest thing. You think, well, there's the same pattern, they'll all be identical. They each one gets a little personality as it gets sewn up. It really is the oddest thing. I haven't been able to understand it. Sometimes I make dozens of teddies, usually the bigger ones, not the little ones. I make dozens of teddies at a time. And at the end, each one has a different face. His little body stuffed differently. For the bigger ones, I actually weigh the stuffing into different balls for the head and the body and everything. So I'll weigh a whole lot of stuffing, and so each teddy gets the same amount of stuffing, and the head has the same amount of stuffing. And because I do them all together, I weigh all the stuffing together. It goes really quickly, and I put them into containers. But yet each teddy comes out differently. 1, 2, 3. So it's 3 from this side, but if I go to that side, it was 4, wasn't it? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Gonna come out there. Don't pull down. Now we're going to do the ears. Front or the back of the teddy doesn't make much difference, but because I have the yarn on this one, I'll just flip it over to the side. So how do I do the ears? That is the center of the teddy there. If you want to, you can put a stitch marker just so that you know. And that's the top. You want the center and you want the top. The ear, you're going to work in, you're basically weaving in, and you come out quite close to that. But you come out on the front. You're going to go over to the back, and you're going to go back to where you started. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm counting simply because I want to demonstrate to you. When you do it at home on your own, you will just use your eye. And then you're going to give him a slight tug. That'll pull Teddy's ear down. Once you've pulled him down, with a very slight tug, you're going to anchor it here. Remember, he's not stuffed. There's no tension on these stitches. You've anchored him. I'm going to use the sharp one to work it away, so I'll take it off now. And I'll do for the same for the other side. As I said, every teddy will come out differently. There's no right and wrong in this. Go in, you work diagonally up, you come out just in front. Lost my stitch marker. I'm going to go over to the back. You're going to go in, back to where you started. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, pretty good. Give him a little tug. And you anchor him. 1 and 2. If you are sure that you have enough tail to work away the crotch, you can weave away these ends and cut them. Sometimes it happens, you're working, you don't not concentrating, you get to the end and you realize you've got 2 short bits. If that's the case, you will use these to work away the crotch. I've left them nice and long simply because when I work, I like to have enough thread. If you want to, just to be sure, you can put your finger in here to make sure that you're not coming out on the other side. You're going to go in, you're going to weave, just catching the work somewhere so you can feel it's getting caught. Pull it nicely. You want nice and loose. You don't want that to pull your teddy because it'll ruin him. You go back in, you can weave up, and you're finished. When I'm working big teddy, or if I want this teddy to have a neck, then this thread here, I would work down there, I would work around both of them, one from each side, and then I pull teddy like that. I'd literally, with this guy here, I weave in, I turn it around, I weave, I come out. The other one I do the same, and then I'd have 2 tails, one on each side, and I would pull, and Teddy's neck comes in beautifully. But because this little guy is not stuffed and he's staying flat, I do not need him to work the neck. But it's so handy to have all the work done with 1 tail, or 2 tails in this case, simply by leaving enough yarn when you start your project. My finger's in there, see? It's guiding it. Make sure he's not pulling Teddy. You don't want him to get all warped and horrible. You could cut him off now if you wanted to. I'm just going to work back. If you wanted to, you could even work it so it comes out here, and you could nip them off so you have a bit of tail inside. Pull a little bit, nip. Make sure you're cutting the right ones. Pull a little bit, nip, and then give them a little stretch. No sign at all. Now what we are going to do is we're going to work the crotch away. And here I'm actually going to use the sharp pointed needle, which is called the tapestry needle. once again, it's a question of preference, but I want to work the bottom of those feet, and I really need to get into the stitches. So here we are, 2 feet are open. I'm going to go to the other side. Feet is joined, is closed. Come to the front, pick him up, go to the back, pick it up. Pick it up from the outer edge, you see there. Come to the front, pick it up. Pick it up from the outer edge on this side. Go to the outer edge on that side. Come out again. Now I'm going to put the needle inside the work, come out where I started. So that's the base of that foot. Could have worked, maybe pull that in a little bit. I like the sharp needle for this because then if there's anything that is sticking out or bulging, I can pull it in. Okay, to this angle. Don't necessarily count the ridges, but you can if you want to. What I'm trying to do is make sure that the crotch is even. These two, if you've got like that, you can see he's joined there. So like that. So it's not necessarily going to be the ridges matching up. It's a little bit tricky, it's a little bit fiddly. Probably why I leave it to the end. But I know the rest of the teddy is done, and the rest of the teddy is flat, and that's why the crotch is basically just balancing everything out. If I sewed him first and then I did the rest, sometimes it can be a bit warped. There's nothing gaping here, and that's because when I was adding the yarn and cutting the yarn, remember when I was changing over for the legs and everything, I was working that tail away. If you don't do that way, sometimes you can find there's a big gaping stitch here, which you will need to work away now. You need to pull that gaping stitch in to have it nice and clean underneath here. A little bit of repair work will be needed. So even though it's a bit fiddly working that tail away when you're adding and taking away a leg, later on it does pay off. Do like my tapestry needles. There we go. You can buy a packet of them off eBay, different sizes for a couple of pounds. So I've got all different sizes, from the tiniest ones to much larger ones, both in darning and in tapestry. It makes such a difference working away. So there's our little teddy. We have this last tail. We'll go in. We'll work him away. Make sure he doesn't stick out on the other side. Just flip it over, just check. Use the disc, push it out. I also have a pair of pliers here with, I'll show you. I use these a lot. So if a needle is going through a particularly hard place, I will pull out my pliers. Especially the little tiny needles. Very, very handy to have a pair of pliers for that. I'm happy with that. I could work in once more. We don't know the journey that this little teddy is going to take. and he might not be handled much, he might be handled a lot. Whatever it is, we want to make sure that he doesn't come unraveled. There we go. So that's the end of this video. I will add a bit of ribbon, so I think I'll just quickly do that. Where are my ribbons? Here. Should have thought about that beforehand. The ribbon gives it a nice little finish. If you have a little ornament, you can add the ornament. You want enough ribbon to actually be able to sew, to make a bow. You need usually about 5 inches at least to sew the bow. So now that you've measured, if you're making a lot, you'll pre-measure it. So there's 5. I don't even know how much you would need. Let's see, 5 plus 5. So you'd probably need 15. 5 plus 5 plus 5 inches. Maybe a bit too much. Let me see if I can make 12 inches. Avalanche of things. Yeah, I think 12 inches is nice. Cut it. Then what I do is get my little scrap bowl. And just nip it like that. They're flying off, it didn't even go into my bowl. It makes a type of little tongue. That one's not very well done. This is a 2mm ribbon. Oops. It's quite tricky to work. Come on. Not because you're on camera that you have to be difficult. It's a bit nicer. I'm using a blunt darning needle, large. Choose your front, choose your back. Choose this as the front. Just weave in. Go around to the back. Flatten it out a little bit. Because you have to do it afterwards. Go all the way. Okay, let me do it the way I normally do, not so I can show it in the camera. Let me do it this way. Go all the way through. Flat? Yes, it is. Oh, it's twisting a little bit. It's annoying when there's a twist. Probably overthinking this. Yeah, it's tricky to get that twist out. Be more careful when I sew it in. it's flat. And make sure it's on the same one. So it's this one here, it's this row there. Go underneath. And pick up little stitches. You can sew the ribbon down, or you can just make a little knot. I think the 12-inch was good. Not very giving, or forgiving I should say. I'm going to pull that one out a bit more. Not something I've really done on such a small teddy. Okay, so you can add your ornament now. You could also sew it so he's firmly down, or you can make a little tiny bow. I am going to leave him loose because I'm going to send him off like that. I think they will probably, to the charity I'm sending it off to, I think they're probably going to add an ornament, and then they can make a little bow after they added that. So I'll leave him like that and he'll be packed up. But for this video, yeah, there's actually ways of making bows where you can get these two little guys on the top. Because if you, for instance, if you sew him, if you do like that and then you sew him in place, if you sew him in place, it can actually be quite beautiful. Couple of little stitches there just to hold that down. I have a video on how to add beads to an angel wrap, angel pocket, and then you can see there how I've sewn it down. So there we go. Thank you very much for watching, and see you in another video. Bye now.